Um, I don't think it's fair to make defending atheism your number one priority in what kind of science you practice. I think science needs to be neutral with respect to these metaphysical questions, at least to the point of being willing to consider them. If you come to not only biology, but cosmology or physics or anything else with the presumption maybe the cosmos is purposeful, maybe there's a plan of some kind, maybe there's an intrinsic order, I think it's actually more scientific to make those assumptions than not. All the great classical scientists like Boyle and Newton and Maxwell and Copernicus and Galileo came with that kind of presumption. And so it's a really simple question. Do you love science? Or are you just using science to keep certain people out of the conversation? Now, on the creation side, like my book, Evolution 2.0, if you were to summarize it in a couple of phrases, it's Darwinists underestimate nature and creationists underestimate God. And my investigations led me to believe that nature is intrinsically purposeful, not that a God had to show up every 500 million years or every 50 million years and introduce a whole bunch of new species, or that the earth was 6,000 years old. I didn't find that to make any sense at all. What I found was this intrinsic purposefulness of life was a very deep question. It's so deep, it's almost terrifying. And I think this is what has kept this nihilistic narrative at play. As soon as you open the door to that, you have so many unanswered questions. They're almost bewildering. Like, how deep does the purposefulness go? Does it go to the cellular level? Does it go to the components of the cell? Is a virus purposeful? I mean, these are not easy questions.
Denis, you say you don't come at this with a sort of religious perspective. You're just interested in the science, and yet the science itself seems to be pointing in certain metaphysical directions, which obviously makes some scientists uncomfortable. Not you. What do you kind of surmise from what appears to be in front of us now? This idea that there is almost a, for want of a better word, consciousness within life, within its ability to remold itself and to move in a certain direction towards not simply, adapting well to its environment, but to the fact we can have this conversation, the fact that we can have these incredibly deep thoughts. Do you sense that there's something, to use another phrase, transcendent about this overall pattern that we find in nature?
Yes, I think the best way I can start answering that very difficult question is, let's be clear from the beginning. Look at this box here. Inside this box is an organ that consumes at least 20% of the energy that I consume every day. I'm a physiologist. I naturally ask the question, why do we have what's inside here? This is what gives us our consciousness. We know that because if this is all damaged, we're unconscious. We don't seem any longer to be a living organism in the ordinary sense of the word at all. And, you can ask a simple evolutionary question. Why did evolution allow this to be developed? Is it there just, as Jerry Coyne would say, as a fantastic illusion that the evolution has left us with? The illusion that we have freedom, that we have agency, and so on. Well, I just reverse that and say, no, I need to explain why this evolved. Now, one reason is that it makes it easier for an organism to be creative in finding its way in the world. And the world is not an easy place to find your way in. Ask those cells from the lung that were finding themselves in a petri dish and trying to find a way. Organisms do this all the time. So my feeling is this. The metaphysical questions of what there is beyond what we can know directly through scientific investigation, those are extremely difficult. But I've no problem with those who wish to ask and try to answer such questions. That's fine. I can't answer those questions from what I do. As I said earlier on, I come to this straightforwardly as a scientist, but I understand the nature of the questions. Why is it that the water we need for life to exist at all is so strange in its chemical properties? You can go through a list like this, and indeed cosmologists have done that for us. There's a lovely book by Martin Rees, the great cosmologist here in the United Kingdom, just called Just 6 Numbers. He points out that if you adjusted these numbers even by a fairly modest amount in an attempt to explain how the universe has developed in the way that we think it has, you wouldn't get the universe that we now know, and you wouldn't get one capable of the evolution of life. Now, there's a very big question there. Why are those constants the way they are? I'm a computer modeler. That's how I developed my understanding of how the heartbeat gets generated. I was modeling the processes that I was measuring experimentally and showing that could account for it. If I'm presented with a model that depends on a high degree of accuracy in the constants in the model, I'm suspicious. And that's about as far as I can go. I say, okay, this raises some very deep questions, but I'm not capable of answering those questions.
I appreciate your honesty and humility in that sense, Denis. The surprise